So at this point, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Noel Heredia, to talk about project management and give us his take. And so, Noel, if you could start off with talking about a little bit about your background and how you got into project management and some firms that you've worked with in the past.
Sure, absolutely. You need to let me share. I think it's not.
Oh, no problem. Hold on.
Okay. All right.
Okay, you're all set to go.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Noel Heredia. By way of background, I'm a double E. I graduated many years ago. Actually, I'm celebrating 42 years of being working in this field this year. So been around for a while. My early career was in design and building of computer systems, which is 40 years ago was very primitive by today's standards. And over a period of years, we literally used to design the printed circuit boards and mount the components and from scratch. So you can well imagine how primitive that was 42 years ago. Be that as it may, over a period of time, I graduated something called Software Process Engineering Management, SEPM, or Software Engineering Process Management. So basically, it's all about managing the processes that need to be put together to build software. Software is not about just putting a bunch of programmers in a room and getting them to write code. You need to orchestrate, if you will. And that's where the project management piece comes into play. I got a credential in software engineering process management from Carnegie Mellon, and subsequently got myself a credential or certified as an IT auditor. So I'm a CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, where we go into companies and we audit the way in which they build and maintain the software systems that are used by large companies. Along the way, I went to work for a company called Accenture, which is a rather big IT company, had 350,000 employees in around the world, and served all the Fortune 50, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. I had the privilege of leading a practice, actually setting it up from scratch and leading a practice which supported the software development process. And I led this in North America and then replicated the model I built in other parts of the world. And then I went to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And 5 years ago, I stepped off the carousel and started working on my own and serving and supporting the small and medium-sized businesses and nonprofits as a part-time chief technology officer. So that's my background. And today, when Ray asked me to speak about project management, I said I would talk about project management as I saw it from the front lines, not the theoretical version of it, but this is the version which comes from the front lines. So let me pause here and ask you, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So yeah, so this is a view from the front lines. So it's got a different spin, if you will, on the whole concept of project management. And let's sort of look at it, and then, I'm going to pause from time to time and give you an opportunity if you want to ask questions. So the essence of, where is this thing not? Sorry. Some reason my slides are not advancing. Okay, so every project starts with a goal. You've got to be very clear about the goal, as it should be clear enough to you. But it's so interesting when people jump into a project and they don't have a well-defined goal. So it's good to reiterate that. Now, if you've got a goal, then achieving the goal needs something which often tends to be forgotten, which is you need a plan. It seems obvious, but often people just jump into doing stuff without a plan. They think the goal is the plan, and that's not the case. So what is a plan? So it depends on whether the plan, the goal is complex or it is a simple goal. If it's a simple goal, then the plan can be quite simple. But if the the goal is complex, then you need a project plan. And that is really the key thing that we're talking about here. So the point of a project plan is that it is a collection of things that need to be done in an ordered manner. And how you plan them, how you identify them, you plan them and supervise the execution is the whole business of project management. So the project plans will start with a charter, and you can see what a charter is. Basically, it's just a list of things that we identify what the plan is about, what are the resources, and that we have, and you sort of got the details over here. The charter will speak to the scope of the plan. What are we going to do in this particular project? Who are the participants? And so it goes. Important things are right here at the bottom. What are the measures we are going to identify for determining whether we are doing, achieving the goals of the plan, and what are the assumptions and the risks that we have identified in executing the plan. Okay, so far so good. Let me just, I don't understand why this thing is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, so a project plan comprises of the following things: tasks, that's obvious; estimates of time and effort for each task; definitions of people and skills needed; and the list of potential risks involved. That's what I mentioned. This is something which is often ignored because they just assume that everything will work out according to plan, and later on we will see they don't. And the list of potential impediments to the plan is something that we need to be concerned about. Okay, so if you've got the goal and you've got a project charter and you've identified all these components and you've made this list of tasks and estimates, and you've got a people involved and the list of potential risks, now you're perhaps ready to go. Well, not so fast, because all this needs to be managed. All these things are so many moving parts. You're already looking at disparate things: tasks, timelines, people, and risks, and management of risks. So you need to be thinking about how you're going to manage all this. And that's where project management comes into the picture. Now, let's go to, all right. So what are the key challenges of project management? This is where, this is in fact the part that my experience is coming into what I'm going to speak to. So this is a well-known fact. All plans are good until the first shot is fired. Who said that? Well, some of you may recognize his name. Dwight D. Eisenhower was a former president, but more importantly, he was the commander of the Allied forces that were victorious in the Second World War. And he knew a thing or two about plans and battles and winning them. So he said preparing for battle is obviously key, like I've just been speaking about, but they are useless. But planning is indispensable. But preparing for battle, he's always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. You see that it seems ironical, seems contradictory, but that's the key, and we will see in a moment why. So first, we'll start by being very clear about something. Plans are not procedures. So what is a procedure? A procedure typically is something that you consider there's an input, there's a process, there's an intermediate output, and so it goes until you've finally got an output, and we call that a procedure. Well, plans are not procedures. A procedure is a procedure, and a plan is something which is a collection of tasks, and we will see how we need to manage that. And plans are not cast in stone. This is what Dwight Eisenhower was speaking about. So if you know that they are not procedures and that they are not cast in stone, then what are plans? Let's look at what project management is, and then we'll see what plans are. So project management, as we've already seen, starts with a plan. And then we just saw that no plan survives first contact intact. That's what we've learned from experience. So how do we know it has not survived? Because we need to measure performance of the plan. You start off doing something and you need to measure how you're doing. The best example I give, and that's why I use this image, is you wouldn't drive a car without a rev counter on, without at least a speedometer. You don't know how fast you're going. So you need to be able to measure what you're doing in real time. Otherwise, you are running on lots of risks. If you're driving a car without a speedometer, you're running the risk of getting a ticket. So this is a key thing, to be able to measure performance. Then comes, this is the heart of what I'm saying, your ability to replan. So you start with a plan. We know that no plan survives intact. You measure your performance, and then when you determine that it's not working according to plan, you replan. And as we said, perfect plans are just not a thing. There's no such thing as a perfect plan. That's why it's important to have the ability to replan and keep tracking your performance against the ultimate goal, because that should be the North Star, the goal which you're pursuing. So good project management boils down to being able to replan with agility. That's the secret of success. So we've understood what a project plan is. We understand the ability to replan is critical, and that's the formula for success. So the next few slides, we're going to look at what does this mean? What do you mean by replanning with agility, and where does it come from? I'm going to pause over here and give you guys a chance to ask me any questions that may have arisen in your minds at this juncture. Questions? Or everybody's understood everything, or everybody's falling asleep?
No.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd like to highlight here is, you know, we read through our textbook about planning and the different types and CPM and PERT and all these techniques. But what you're mentioning right now to me is so important. The idea that plans aren't perfect. There's replanning, you're pivoting. It's a learning exercise. It's an exercise in experimentation to get the result that you want. And you need to be able to measure what you're doing while you're doing it. And I just can't say enough about the whole idea of replanning.
Yes, that's spot on. Every successful project manager is a guy or a lady who is smart to be able to think on her feet. Think about when you're driving your car, when let's say you put into cruise mode. It's doing, you know, you're in the speed limit, you think you're happy. No, replanning is when you realize there's a car in front, you've got to hit the brakes, because there's no point in saying speed limit 65, that's the plan, I'm going to stick with the plan. Sure, you're going to ram into the car in front. That's why replanning is a real thing. It could be as dramatic as hitting the car in front. So very, very important for you to be able to, you know, anticipate that and fix it. Great. Okay. So let's move on. So let's talk about what becoming agile is all about. So becoming agile starts with an ability to understand what sort of capability, and that's a key word, capability you need to execute the plan. So let's see what that means. So let's go back to basics. What's a plan? It's a collection of effort streams. What is an effort stream? An effort stream is a collection of tasks, and when you take a bunch of tasks together and you say that's an effort stream, and you have multiple effort streams, add up all those effort streams and you've got a plan. So let's double click into a task and see what is a task. So a task is basically executed when you have identified the resources to execute the task and the time it's going to take to execute the task. So time and resources are the two characteristics of a task. Now, what are resources? Resources consist of people and the equipment that you need to give to the people to execute the task that you ask them to do. And if you do that, then guess what? You get the desired outcome. Really? Is it just that? Well, we'll see in a moment. Basically, we said tasks and people are basically people and equipment and systems to execute the task. What is missing is a process. So a process is something which is a way in which you will execute the task. It's something has to be defined. And in the early days of project execution, project management, they used to invariably miss out the process. They would not, how do I say, they did not emphasize and give enough importance to process. And as we've seen from experience, that process is key. What's the method? It's something like a task. I give somebody a recipe to cook a dish, and I give him the set of ingredients, but I do not give him the process by which those ingredients come together. You can imagine, for those who are interested in cooking, the recipe by itself is of no use. So a task without, may have the people, may have the cooks, may have the cooking utensils, but without the procedure, you're not going to be able to cook the dish in the way it should execute. And I think that should drive home the point. The process is key. So if you now recognize the importance of process alongside people and equipment, see what we are talking about. We call this a capability. And that's the heart and soul of what we should be using as a core of your project plan. So if you look at capability as your starting point, then you are talking about now attacking your tasks, and then the tasks are going to drive your, the set of tasks together are going to drive your outcome. So let's take a look at what capability really is, and we can talk about what's called a reference model. So it's time for you guys to learn this vocabulary. It's not intuitive, but it's something you may want to add from this evening onwards to your vocabulary. We talked about project management. We've now added 2 words to your vocabulary: capability in project management and the reference model. So capability reference model is a term which has been evolved in the last 30 years, more or less, or 25 years. And it reflects a bit on my background, because that's what came out of the Software Engineering Institute in Carnegie Mellon, and came out of the software industry and the Department of Defense, figuring out they're spending billions of dollars developing systems that go into defense systems, and they were failing in those projects. And because of that, they set up the Software Engineering Institute in Pittsburgh, and they came up with this whole concept of a capability reference model. So that's what you guys are learning this evening. So let's look at what a capability reference model looks like. So there's your goal, and you start with a project sponsor. I mean, without a project sponsor, there's no project. Then you've got the project management, and we talked about what is project management: the management of all the tasks and the effort streams and the tasks and the activities involved in getting the desired outcomes. So to do that, you first need to lay what we would call a platform, a team that enables the task execution. And I mentioned to the work I did in Accenture. This is what my team did. We were sitting behind the scenes enabling task execution. So that's where my expertise, I mean, that's how this is so close to my experience. And then sitting on the shoulders of this platform, if you will, of sponsor, project managers, and enabling tasks, is the project task execution team. So what you can see, if you take this approach for a capability reference model, you're set up for success. Notice you're not just talking about the gray project management team over here, or the task execution team over here. You're using a capability model to set these guys up for success. And of course, the sponsors are just paying the bills right now. So this is a really important aspect of project management, which is often ignored, but this is something you're learning this evening. So the tasks are now going to be powered by a capability, and not just by some heroics. So let's look at some examples of what we mean by project task execution team. What is the capability model for them? So you can imagine that there's a goal, and you need to have, at some point, the project goal is going to be achieved, and you need to launch the project. Was that a question?
No, go ahead.
That's fine. No, that's fine. So you have these as different capabilities that need to be put together to actually execute the project. You've got the project launch, you've got the project. This is not a complete list. This is just examples. The project engineering, you've got the project support and analysis. So there are different teams of people working on different aspects of the project that you put together and create this what we call a capability model. Now, this is a totally different approach to just simply making a list of all the tasks and telling people, hey, you go and do this and you go and do that. No, by using a capability model, you're going to be in a position to set each one of these people up for success. And that is key to us being able to overall, make the project a success. In the same way, when you talk about the team enabling task execution, you've got a set of other capabilities that need to be brought into play. So this is the initial project planning is all about identifying the capabilities we need. The capabilities tell us what are the processes we need to bring into play, and then you drill down slowly into the various tasks. This is absolutely the secret sauce of a successful project execution. So the question is, what's the value? If you use this approach, then planning is more realistic. Then measurements are more meaningful, because now you know exactly in each little bucket of activity and effort, you know whether you're doing according to plan. You've got better visibility into what's happening because you're measuring this all the time. And then you get a more granular insight into what's going on. And that's the secret of being able to replan your options, because now agility comes from your ability to replan, because you know exactly what's happening in advance in every little area. You see, you're spotlighting it. You're not just got this big, huge task in hand. I'm going to build a bridge. And now if it's not being built in time, you don't know what's involved. No, because you've now broken it down into its components. You've got a process to execute each of those tasks involved, and you know which resources you've got. And if you've got a slippage, you know exactly what it's due to. So if you're with the ability to replan, let's sort of summarize what's going on. So project management, we now say, starts with a plan, but needs more than a plan. And it needs you to know what should happen when, and that's what a plan is. But you need to express it as a collection of effort streams. But then you need a capability reference model. And then you measure performance. And then you replan with agility, because you know exactly what's going on in every little aspect of the project. So let's see what success looks like. So that's it. You basically got these three things in play: your plan, your capability reference model, your measurements, and then you're set up for being able to replan with agility. And if you do that, guess what? You're going to be successful. That's my show.
Great. Well, thank you, Noel, because again, I really like the idea of having that reference model where you have these components that you're addressing.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if just one more time you could review the capability model components, what those pieces are.
Yes, absolutely can do that. So if you have got a project in your hand, the first thing you need to do is say, all right, what is the project, a task execution team going to do? So you say, in this particular example I pulled up was, in fact, it was from a project I did, helping a grocery store launch a new program for their work. So the first thing we said is we need to have this associate onboarding was something that was identified as an important thing. We want to launch the new program in the grocery store, we need to have associates who are going to be trained in this. So you need to identify who in the grocery store is going to be trained. You've got to onboard them. We have got to do customer onboarding because the customers have got to be educated about the new program that the grocery store is going to do. You have to do launch design and planning because the guys dreamt up the project plan, sorry, the new program for the grocery store, but they have to design every bit of it. What's it going to, is it going to involve giving the customers a new loyalty card? Is it going to be, how do you register them? There are so many aspects of it. So we needed to think all that through to get that project off the ground. Then project operations. So this is sitting behind them. We've got all the different things that need to happen. Somebody has got to figure out. So that's orchestration of processes. Operationalization of the planning is a task. And as I said, this is not the whole list, is just some examples. There's the staffing and the teaming. This is not going to happen by plucking people off the sidewalk. You have got to identify who's going to do it, when are they, when are they going to be onboarded, the whole staffing and teaming and teams that have to be formed. Project engineering. One of the things that we needed to design was the customer journey. Customer walks into the door. What is he or she going to experience? Who would encounter them? We need to publicize this. What is the, we have to have a system in place so that every day we measure whether we were meeting our goals and figure out ways to get better, because the customer complained that they didn't understand what the associate was telling them. We need to retrain the associate, change the script that we give to the associate, and get better publicity. So that's project execution improvement. Then a liaison with project enablement. I told you there's a team behind these guys that was supposed to get help from them. So that group is part of the project engineering. And finally, the support and analysis, because as it's going, customers would need to talk to people. So you have the customer support. I'm just giving you examples of different capabilities that need to be put together, thought up in advance, put together and set up, and they form the project task team. So this is something which most people don't think of. They just think of the task. They don't think of the capability that's involved, because think about the capability involved with setting up customer support. You not only have the task of having to respond to a question or a request for assistance, but you need to have the tools that the customer support team needs to have, the technology that's going to support them, and the process they need to follow, and so it goes. In like manner, you've got the team that is supporting these guys. And these guys have got different types of things they're solving for. For example, they need to worry about things like the compliance. There may be some regulatory issues involved in doing this. There are standards that the organization needs to adopt and follow. These days, data is a critical aspect of it, not just from being able to collect the data, but also being able to analyze it. But more important nowadays is cybersecurity is something that needs to be worried about as well. So this is what, when you're thinking about a project, you're thinking much deeper than just getting a bunch of tasks together. You got to think about it, map this into a house project, and you will see it's much more than getting the crew that's going to do the house framing or putting the drywall up. You got to do things like regulatory compliance. Who's going to pull permits? Who's going to make sure that the inspector gets in on time to certify the house so that it moves forward, and so it goes. So for every project, you've got to identify all the different capabilities that need to be in play. Who's going to be taking care of that capability? What sort of skills do they have? What's the process they follow? And what sort of time we allot to them? Much more complex than just a bunch of tasks and getting some people to do that. Does that help, Ray?
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, because I really wanted to emphasize those components to our class, and and again, the whole idea of not just just, hey, let's do a project tomorrow, but certain things have to be considered within that. So thank you for that, Noel. It's perfect. Thank you.